Hello and welcome to lesson 1 of week 8. In this lesson, we are going to look at pseudo classes and we are going to look at how to define a document language. My name is Mildred. Before this class, I have created a skeleton for what we are going to need to illustrate pseudo classes and the document language. I have created a page that holds 3 links, and also we have a container with paragraphs. Now, a pseudo class is used to define a special state of an element. Recall that when we looked at the hyperlinks, we said that by default the anchor tag is blue when unvisited, it is purple when visited, and it is red when active. So we have pseudo classes to change these default colors to the color that we want them to be. So I'll create a style for the anchor tag. And if we look at the page, we have these links. They are purple because they have been visited. When I click on the link and it's active, it becomes red. But by default, a new link is blue. So what I want to do now is to change this default color and the style of the anchor tag using pseudo classes. I'll define a style for the anchor tag, and for you to change the color when it is unvisited, you use a colon and link. So which means I want to change this color from blue to be, let's say we want it green when unvisited. So save this, and when I refresh my page, because it is visited, we will not see that effect. But if I create a new link, let's say, and this link is, let's say, forms. Save this and refresh my page, I will have a green link. It is green because it is unvisited. Once I visit this link, it becomes purple. So when I click on this, there is no file called forms2 on this in this directory, so I have no file here. But when I go back, the page was not visited, and let's put a link of a real file. So we have form2. Save, refresh. Now it's going to take me there, and it's purple because I have visited this link before. I want to use the visited anchor tag to change the default purple to a different color. So I'll use a colon and I'll put visited. I want the color when it is visited to be, let's say, black. I will save this, refresh my page, and I have all black because they have been visited. I want to set the style when you hover over the link. Now take note that you must have the link and the visited before you have the hover. Once you hover, I want it to have a background color of blue. So when we refresh our page and we hover over, it changes the background color to blue. And so these are the styles you use with your anchor tag. We have one other pseudo class we can use after the hover. It is the active. And when it is active, we want to change the color from the default red to have, let's say we want it to have a background color of red and a text color or background color of black. I'll just use the name, and we want it to have a text color of white. Save this, refresh the page. When I click on it, it's active, its background color is black, the text color is white. So these are the pseudo classes that we use with the anchor tag. We can also use pseudo class in a different way. Let's say, for instance, we have this div tag, and I want to put a style. Let's say ID is equal to, let's say, div1. If I define a style for this using the ID selector, div1, and I put border to be 2px solid green. So let's refresh to see what it is. So I have this in a container that is green. I can define a pseudo class for this style and say I want this style to be applied to a div tag that has an ID attribute called div1. And what I want to do with that is when you hover this container, I want it to have a background color of black and a text color of white. I'll refresh my page. I will hover here and it changes the background color to black and the text to white. There is another pseudo class that we can use, which is called the first child pseudo class. If I want to match all of the p tag that are the first child of an element, I am going to use a style. Let's say color should be blue. So when we look at our body, we have this is the first child and we have this is the first child, which means we expect to see these two with a text color of blue on the page. If I want to match all of the bold tag that are in the first child of the p element, I will write it like this. So p first child, and I'll put bold here. So what this will do is to match all of the bold tag in the first child p element. Now if we look at the body, we do not have any bold tag in the first child, and this is in the second, so which means that the background color of this will not be blue. When I save and I refresh, we are not going to have that in blue. But as soon as this becomes the first child, when I delete the first child, or I make it the second, let's say I put it below to be second child, and I put it beneath this, save and refresh my page, I am going to have the style applied to the bold elements this time because they are now in the p tag that is the first child of an element. If I want to match just the first bold in the element, let's say I put another bold around this, what I will do now is to write p and then I'll put the bold next, and then I'll put first child. So what I want to do is to have all of the bold tag that are within a p element and are the first child of the p element. And so when I refresh my page, this bold is the first child of this p. I will have the background color in blue, and I will not have this in blue because it is not the first child of this p tag. So I'm going to refresh my page and I'm going to have just these two that are first bold element of the p in blue. So I want you to research and see other pseudo classes, try it and see how to use them and how to apply them on your page. Now let's look at the language of the page. We can declare a global lang attribute on the page, and we do that in the start HTML tag by using the lang attribute and specifying the value. So there are a list of approved values, so we can use English. English has several dialects, so we can use US English. EN US can use for GB for Britain. There are a list of the language reference if you want it to be in French, FR. So there are different language codes. You have to go online, research and see what the language code for the lang attribute is. And when you define a document language, you can actually use pseudo classes to apply style to an element based on the language of the document. Let's say, for instance, I'm not using a global lang attribute here. I want to do something like in this p tag, I would declare the language as French. Even though it's in English, let's assume that this is in French. And this language, I will say it is English, US. Now, if I want to put a style based on the language, I can come here and say P. Now the pseudo class I'm going to use is going to be lang. And in the pair of brackets, I'm going to put the language EN-US. When the document language is in English US, make that text, or let it have a background color of, let's say, yellow. So we have just one text, which is this one. Let's say this is in English. This is in English. And let's say this is in French. And I also want to say any P tag whose language is French, I want the text to be aligned to the center, and I also want the font style to be italic. So we want to have this is in French in italic and aligned to the center. We want to have this is in English to have a background color of yellow. So I'll save this, refresh my page, and we have the style applied because we have applied the style to the text based on the language of the document. So this is where we are going to end this lesson. In the next lesson, we are going to look at pseudo elements. I want you to research more on pseudo classes and try to read up on it and see or practice how to use the pseudo classes and also how to specify language globally and for different parts of the document.